Welcome back to The Edge. Your Google My Business posts might be on a third-party site. HTML tags dropped and are being replaced by H1 tags. And if you're speaking to a room of SEOs, remember, Smokey Bear says only you can prevent Google title tag abuse. You're listening to news from The Edge for the week of August 30th, 2021, here on Edge of the Web Radio.
From the Edge of the Web studios, here's what we're looking at this week.
Now, you threw the Smokey Bear, but this entire weekend, my daughter did an Eagle project for Crime Stoppers, and that was McGruff the crime dog, right? So I had two mascots bouncing over my head as I was doing that intro.
I think
we've actually had a lot of forest fires here, so thanks for making light of that.
Oh, God. Well, that's pleasant. There's Morty Oberstein. He couldn't sit in his seat long enough. He had his lunch in there. Morty, how you doing, sir?
I'm great. You want more?
Yeah, no, that's it. That's all I need.
That's it? I am great.
He was great. Hey, this is Edge of the Web. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks from Site Strategics. Every week we bring you amazing guests to speak with, including Morty Oberstein, and we talk about digital marketing tactics and news of the week. Each week we cover SEO and digital marketing news that's separate from our weekly interview with thought leaders in the community. So check that out as well, as we are trying to get our news out to you ever more quickly. Ooh, I actually did a modification on that.
Do you know? So you sent me this lovely journal.
I did.
That I have right here.
Uh-huh. And
where it says Edge of the Web on it. And I actually am a person who writes things down. I like to have it written down in front of me.
Yep.
And I was using it. I opened it up and you inscribed it.
I did.
I just saw it. What a pleasant surprise.
And what's it say there?
I can't read your handwriting. Other than that, I'm just kidding. Thanks, bud. We'll get news out even more quickly.
Exactly. See?
Then you signed your name G.
That's an E.
In what language?
In my cursive script. Okay, I'm just going to have to go back to handwriting school. Well, thanks for that.
Is there a handwriting school that exists?
There is.
Where is this handwriting school? I've never heard of this before.
Look it up. The title may have changed on the SERP, but okay, so there's Morty, and let's get this first article out of the way so we can get into the meat of the matter here. Over at Search Engine Roundtable, Barry Schwartz posts up an article regarding Google My Business. Your Google My Business posts can actually now appear on third-party sites without your knowledge. Google now has a notice when you add Google posts in Google My Business that those posts can appear not just on Google properties, but third-party sites. Those third-party sites could very well be City Search, Yelp, I believe. Where else are these properties that would actually be moving out? Maps and Search, and on third-party sites, that's what they say. Do you have any idea what those third-party sites could be, Morty?
I have absolutely no idea. I have absolutely no idea who will be posting them.
Oh my gosh! I mean, what are we talking about here?
What a wonderful Google post. Let me put this on my third-party site.
Exactly, because that's exactly where it's supposed to be, right? I was just hoping that we'd at least see some sort of traffic data coming in from those posts inside of Google My Business analytics, but how in the world can we even know where these posts are going? That's the first question out of the gate here. Not even a thing, huh?
I mean, it's interesting. Like theoretically, you can get traffic from other sites to your Google posts. I guess theoretically, maybe. Who knows? No one, literally.
All right. Well, that's something. We'll watch it and see if
conceptually interesting.
Conceptually, but it probably shouldn't have made the cut. All right. What did make a cut, or maybe shouldn't?
You're blaming me. I put it there. That's passive aggressive.
Well, this is one I put in there that you didn't, and this is from Barry over at Search Engine Roundtable as well. SEMrush. Google dropped HTML title tags usage by 77% and replaced those with H1 tags 75% of the time. Wait, Morty Oberstein.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Head of communications over here at SEMrush. Share some really early data on the Google title change that we've all been obsessed with. In short, the number of Google search results showing with HTML title tags on the SERP dropped 77% on average. When that happened, roughly 75% of those titles are now utilizing the H1 in their title instead of the HTML title tag. And that's what we're reporting SEMrush is reporting on SERPs themselves. All right, teed it up for you, Morty. Take it away. What are we looking at here?
Basically, the data team, I asked the data team at SEMrush to pull some data, and they did, and I analyzed it, and I made some graphs. I took 2,000 keywords. So again, like, you need to consider it as a trend rather than this is a hard number. I'm sure if you normalize a data set, which I did not, and if you pulled in more keywords, you probably see a little bit of a lower number. But basically, since the end of July to now, the title tag usage has gone down by 70-something%. So whether it's 65% or 75%, it's an enormous chunk of decrease in the usage of the title tag. Now, when Google is not using the title tag, it tends to, majority of time, the number I pulled was 75%, be pulling the H1 instead. So basically, if you want to stick a nice CTA in there, put in your H1, not your H2.
There you go.
I'm just kidding. Don't do that at all.
No, I mean, the point is, are we all now relegated to? And we understand that this rollout was a bit of a debacle here. We talked about it last week. It's
huge. It's really big. And the last graph, which I pulled after the fact, and this one has about 3,000 keywords, which again is not a huge data set, but data points to the trend. Basically says that as of today, the title tags on the SERP and the title tag, I'm sorry, the titles on the SERP only match the title tag itself 45% of the time. That's the number you really want to focus on, not the decrease. The decrease is basically how big massive this was.
Sure. It's
replacing with H1s, and you're currently up with an environment where the title tag is only being used about 45% of the time.
It's crazy. Whack. Yeah, it's crazy.
Right, and whether you normalize this, you put another 10,000 keywords, you get into 35%, 45%, 50%. The number could go up theoretically. You're just dealing with a massive number.
Overnight, all of our titles on the SERP have changed to at least, or hopefully something else to 45% of the time.
That change could be that they just took off the brand name, which is one of the patterns that I saw in there. So it could basically be your title tag, but not with your brand name.
If it was actually in the HTML title.
If it was in the HTML.
Right. Now, again, Google
which,
says...
by the way, would suck.
Absolutely, because...
Put it very sophisticatedly.
Because brand absolutely has a factor of CTA to it. And again, it gets to the point of we're losing control of this, and we lost possibly 55% of the control across the site. So how do we go about seeing our own titles and be able to sniff out whether or not this happened to us? Because you're going through top keywords, you're talking in top industries, and you're looking at top URLs that are ranking in probably the top 20, top 50, what have you. So yeah. So in that space, how do we go about finding out whether or not our titles have shifted to this degree or even more?
I mean, you can do it manually,
right?
Pull up your
each and every one, right? Each one, every one
of them, and you can see which keywords are most important. Like, I mean, I would focus on the keywords that are actually important to you, where you're pulling in traffic.
Absolutely.
And you're getting clicks. Like, if you're just getting traffic and no clicks, like, it doesn't really matter. You're not getting clicks anyway. Maybe it'll help you. Who the hell knows? And then you can use a tool like SEMrush and see for the keywords you're tracking. You can see the SERP as it is now, meaning that you're going to see the SERP, but you can go back in time,
right,
and see the SERP as it was, 10 days ago, a month ago, whatever it is, and see if, because it could be they've been pulling you the whole. Look, it is possible in theory that this whole time they have been editing your title tag. Most likely not. But it is
well, they were saying Google said that this is not new, and they have adjusted
as a construct. It's not new,
right? But
look. Wave, like, it's like saying, well, that was a wave, except that the wave was 50 feet tall. That's not called a wave anymore. It's now called a tidal wave. Once you, logically speaking, I'm not an Aristotelian logic person, but once you hit a certain quantity, you get into a new quality.
You're absolutely right. Lily referenced it as, that's an earthquake, and just the fact that earthquakes exist doesn't lessen the impact of this earthquake. You can use Systrix. I think we found last week actually gives a really cool comparative of search snippets where you can see title by title, so you can actually pull it all down to before and after the earthquake of August 18th. We gotta have some demarcation there, guys.
You gotta if it's happening and you see changes in your click-through rate, that's really where this is. It's in your click-through rate. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely worth investigating what the hell is happening.
Absolutely. So know your search.
Not that you can control it,
but at least you know. At
least you know.
You can see the downward spiral, right? The plane is crashing into the ground, so at least we can see it through the cockpit. Yikes! Not being alarmist at all, but it is pretty dramatic what we're seeing here. All right, so that's a good take, and we appreciate you doing the data, because this is what goes into the dialogue with SEOs, as we're all looking at different data points and giving continual examples over the course of the last week and a half. It's been huge. There's been a sizable explosion of communication in the SEO circles, right?
Yeah, that's an understatement, but yes.
All right. So, before we get into our next article, I want to make sure we thank our title sponsor, Site Strategics. As a title sponsor of Edge of the Web News, this is the Edge of the Web News desk from Site Strategics. We're pioneers in the agile digital marketing methodology. Our core specialties are technical SEO, SEM, social media management, and marketing, as well as focused conversion rate optimization. And everything kind of boils down into results-based marketing that actually works. So if you're interested in what we can do for you, simply give us a call over at 877-SEO for Web or 877-736-4932. And for our third article, this comes from Search Engine Land. We have a special guest to actually kind of unpack this with us. This is Carolyn Lydon. She's the author of the article over at Search Engine Land. Certainly appreciate your time coming in and kind of unpacking this one, Carolyn. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are y'all?
We're very good. Well, you certainly got our attention with this article on the 26th, entitled "Search Marketers Should Remember Their Power in the Google SEO Relationship." Google search engine as a business model relies on us in both SEO and PPC participating in its business model. So, pretty important article in the lane of all of the tumult that's happening with the title rewrites on SERPs, Carolyn. And we actually talked last week with Lily Ray as she was throwing some great information in front of us as soon as this was starting to happen. And we also just covered information that Morty had given us about titles being replaced with H1s. But first blush here, what are we going at with this article? I'm going to dive into a couple of these different pieces, but can you give us a good summary of your position as you were writing this document here?
Sure. So this is obviously an editorial. It's my opinion on the situation. It's not necessarily meant to be a rundown of, I guess, all the sources and things like that. It's just, I kept seeing the chatter on Twitter. I kept seeing Google's responses. I saw the help forum they put out. I saw the responses that they were putting out officially in those Search Central blogs and things like that. And I think it's if we zoom out, it's part of this larger picture that I think a lot of us maybe get too caught in the minutia to really think about, which is that at its core, Google relies on search marketers to essentially run its business. And sometimes we get caught up in these small changes. But we have to remember that even though there's a weird power dynamic in the relationship, we're still a part of that relationship. And it may not feel symbiotic at times, but like the majority of their money comes from advertising and their revenue. And that's, things that our PPC counterparts are putting in on, search, shopping, YouTube, display, et cetera. And on the SEO side, Google as a search engine relies on us as SEOs too. They've obviously grown past that. They're a huge tech company now,
right?
But we still had a part to play as search engine experts, search engine optimization experts. And so I just wanted to encourage SEOs maybe not to get so caught up in that how that relationship is working, and maybe think about how we can sort of take back our power. I don't have all the answers there, but it's just a perspective to hopefully bring some people to the larger picture.
Sure. And you were referencing a couple of examples of this, of our relationship with Google. We have been kind of a sounding board with changes that Google would actually put forth, and our industry is, I wouldn't say cantankerous, but we do fixate on a number of different issues that maybe you lose the larger picture. But however, we obviously are responding to changes that we can actually perceive to a much different degree, because we represent clients and we represent business income and revenue to these clients as well. So whenever you radically move how we are displayed, our clients are displayed, we're obviously going to have a response. And you even pulled out a particular excerpt of some legal professions and medical communities. They are meticulous on the type of titling that they do, and all of a sudden they have lost the control to be able to explicitly lay out the entire string of characters for their titles. Now, we know that's been going on before, but not at all to this degree. There was another example that Lily Ray actually gave over the weekend regarding CDC and the vaccination title that was on that particular page. And it was so truncated that you really couldn't even understand what that article was. And perhaps some of these radical changes should not be designated to types of sites that have such a reliance on those titles to get the story right before anything else. We're seeing a place where we as SEOs not only monitor the behavior of our clients, but also represent the intent of our clients. And for Google to just start continuing to move things around the board without any check-in and a reliance on the SEOs, how do we go about taking back our power?
I think that's part of the feedback loop that a lot of SEOs have sort of started on Twitter. They offer that help forum where you can post examples, which I think was sort of it seemed like something they were like, oh crap, this didn't go as well as we thought. And so they were like, hurry, put up a help forum thing so people can post the examples all in one place instead of us having to collect them on Twitter. So it just seems like we need to continue to be vocal about that feedback, even though I know some people this is what sort of got me and sort of, I don't know, rubbed me the wrong way, was Google saying, this isn't new. We've been doing this forever. But it's obviously, this iteration is much more noticeable, obviously. So it is new in that, the implementation is definitely new. And like you were saying with like the CDC examples or other examples I've seen that people have posted, it's definitely not the same implementation as it was. It is not.
And I bet they'd be very angry if we all radically changed our headlines for our Google ads and reduced our click-through traffic across the board. And that's basically what we're seeing on the optimization side, on the organic side. And I'm not trying to be contentious here, but it is a space where we've got to have a level of control over the contents being displayed. And it has slowly eroded over time. Not only, they're constantly evolving the topography of a SERP, right? But now we can't control to any great degree the meta that's in there. And on top of that, now we can't control, unless we all start actually mining our headlines to affect our titles. That's a whole nother degree right there.
Yeah, to me, it's almost like I've heard other people in the industry say that Google continually evolves because as SEOs, we continue to take advantage of what they're offering us, which is why we don't have so many things we used to have in the past. Like now we can't can't do keyword stuffing. We can't do all this other stuff that is now considered like not great SEO best practices or sort of blocked SEO practices. But it's like when changes like this happen, it sort of forces us to have to do stuff like that. Like, I guess the solution Google is offering is that we have to now go opt out. And I'm thinking of all the clients I have, of all the pages that they have, I do not want to have to go manually into Search Console and opt people out of this thing. Like, I don't have time to do that along with the other stuff I'm doing. And I don't have time to communicate to the client, every single client, which I know people are like, well, that's on you. But like people who have tons of different clients, I don't work with big enterprise sites. I work with a bunch of small businesses. And in order to make money off of that, I have to work with multiple of them. And a lot of them don't understand how Google works. So when you say, this is the title that you've approved, that I put in Yoast for you, and then they go search themselves and they see that it's not like that, I have to manage that communication. I have to manage that account process. And then I have to go into Search Console now and opt out of what Google is saying. And then I was having a conversation with our new content and SEO manager at Search Engine Land, and he was saying it also opens up this Pandora's box, essentially, of saying, if I opt out of Google's automated title tag changes, and then my rankings change potentially because of that, Google can say, well, you opted out. So it's not up to us to show you in search engine results, or like there's such like a trickle down effect of this loss of control, like you were saying, and more work that the SEO has to do. And like you were saying, our PPC counterparts have experienced this as well too. Like when Google has automated their ads, a lot of people were saying that if they're in highly regulated industries, it takes forever for them to get approval process from legal, from everyone who's involved, from the client, to finally get these exact title tags and the ad copy and creative and things like that. So they can't even take advantage of these things that will potentially help improve their click-through rates and things like that, the conversions that they're working toward, because this automation that Google has total control of too. So it's like slowly, incrementally overstepping bounds. And I don't think that Google individuals or like individual teams have malicious intent.
Correct.
I think that they really do think that they're doing what's best for the user, but they're sort of, like I said, overarchingly, there's this relationship that they still need to nurture because we're still part of that ecosystem. I don't think they're necessarily considering all of that. And it's not necessarily the algorithmic engineer's jobs to consider that, but there needs to be they seem very siloed. Like they don't talk to each other. They produce half-baked ideas, which is what I was talking about in the article too. They just ship things. They're like, this seemed like it worked in the lab, so we'll just push it out and see what happens. So yeah,
something's gone horribly wrong there. And I'm going to toss it to Morty here real quick, but I do want to make one additional parallel. PPC was up in arms whenever Google started to actually put together requirements for the Google Partner Badge that you had to take on a certain level of optimization recommendations from Google AdWords because that was basically marginalizing the advertisers' role in that. And I mean, to the degree of trickle effect, is there a potential future where if we opt out of these optimizations that Google's doing on the organic side, are we moving ourselves away from effective control of our clients' content to the degree where maybe Google just talking directly to the client saying, you know what, we're making these recommendations and your advertiser or your marketer's not pursuing those? I mean, do you see any future where that narrative could actually start happening, that Google's talking directly to our clients?
I mean, on the PPC side, they already do that.
They already do, absolutely.
I've heard so many paid search experts say that their clients will come to them with recommendations that the Google ad rep has made. And they're like, oh my gosh, do not do that.
Right.
That's not tailored to your individual account. That's not tailored toward your goals. They just want you to spend money. And that the ad reps that they get are just essentially the entry level people. So they don't have a full idea of the scope of the products and services and things like that. So there's probably, I don't think, because Google doesn't necessarily make money off the unpaid search side, maybe that won't be the case. But overarchingly, in this article too, the point I was trying to drive home is that Google does what's best for Google. And they say that it's to provide the best user experience, but they're providing the best user experience so that people will continue to use Google and click the ads so they can make money off of them. And that's just how business works. Welcome to capitalism.
That is. We do have a role to play, and we certainly do appreciate Google listening to us, but sometimes maybe running it by us first before a lab test gets out of control. Morty, what do you think about what Carolyn had to say in this article and your own insights on the Title H1 fiascos?
So to go back to the very, very first thing she said, which was, this is my opinion. It took me a lot not to chime in and say, well, that's just like, your opinion, man. To quote the Big Lebowski. That's what my mind's been focused on this entire time, by the way. Anyway,
wow.
No, I'm just kidding. Aside from that, I think I agree, like Google doesn't do these things nefariously. I don't think there's somebody like Danny Sullivan's not sitting there thinking, how can I piss off the SEO community today? But I do think that, and you see this as a trend over time, where they don't necessarily get the optics of these things right for some reason. And I can't figure out why they have such a hard time with this, but it's so ridiculous sometimes how like blinded, I guess it's because they're siloed, where they don't see how difficult it is for SEOs. And I don't think they consider the content creator as part of the process. And I think that's just like a fundamental flaw sometimes in how they go about this. Again, not nefariously. I just think it is what it is for whatever particular reason. Mm-hmm. But you do see the consequence of that sort of rollout. And all of this can be avoided if you were to think of the content creator and therefore the SEO as a partner. And I don't think they realize, and maybe they do realize, how many sites SEOs touch. And that's not the greatest thing. Look, that's why they have a John Mueller, because the SEO community does matter. That's why you have CMS is caring about SEO, because users and so many sites are touched by SEOs that you do have a voice. It's just a matter of using it, which go on Twitter and yell and scream, I guess.
Well, it's good to be able to see Google responding so quickly. But is the forum where they wanted all of our complaints to be funneled, as opposed to inside of social media where everybody's retweeting and clamoring out there? Is this a guidance and a focused effort to just have us all bitch and moan over at Google?
No, I mean, like I think they just don't. I don't think they thought about it.
Yeah.
And then now, and I don't know why. I don't know why there's not a better system in place when these things happen at this point. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not blaming anybody. Every place has its downfalls and pitfalls and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But you have these issues and nothing happens. And then you get into these kerfuffles with the SEO industry and there's no way out. And there's got to be a way out.
Carolyn, last word on the article. We really do appreciate your time again. It certainly does give a really good kind of expose on our relationship. Final thoughts on this? Is this going to maybe remedy some scenarios? Are we going to keep on seeing this maybe encroachment?
I mean, to be frank, I don't think it's going to go away. I think just like we've seen on the paid side, it's going to continue probably. And like I said, I believe Google thinks that they're doing what's best for their users, but it's something that we'll probably constantly be having to deal with. Like I mentioned in the article, we've gotten used to the not provided. I'm sure there was huge uproar.
Oh, yeah.
When that first happened. I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't in SEO then because I was probably like still in college. Sorry.
Oh my God, she actually did that on this show. She just gave me some more gray hairs right there.
But yeah, so I feel like it's something that I also saw in the community, a lot of people being like, I don't have time to care about this right now.
Right.
It's just another thing that Google's done. And so I think a lot of times we just learn to adapt, and it might be something that we just have to learn to adapt to. But I do think we should pay attention to how the conversations go and how, the way this sort of pans out for the future too, because like you were talking about this could be the start of like bigger changes that continue to happen.
Mm-hmm. Again, it's not trying to forecast Skynet in any way, shape, or form, but it always tends to lead back there. I don't know why. But I do appreciate the SEO community actually giving this communication back. And on top of that, Google's listening. So I think there is as much as Google may screw up on in the organic side of things, at least, and we've seen this for the last 3 years with John at the helm for 4 years, in so many different respects, Google's listening more than ever before and communicating more than ever before as well. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree. At least we have some form of communication with them. I would love to see more transparency on their part. I know that the people in those liaison roles probably only know so much, and they also can only control so much. So yes, they probably get a lot of flack for things they have no control over. But I would love to see more transparency on their end, especially before these things happen, so that we can prepare at a minimum.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Carolyn. We're going to go ahead and cut you loose. I know you got to go to another meeting, but thanks for jumping in at moment's notice and giving your insight to your article. We certainly do appreciate it, and we recommend everybody in the SEO community as well as digital marketing have a look at that article over at Search Engine Land. So thanks so much.
Yeah, anytime.
Bye, Carolyn.
I love hearing myself talk. So.
Hey, we share something in common. This is like a therapy session. This is what this is.
You should see the pre-recording.
I'll feel better.
So SEO chat, what's happening over at SEO chat, Morty?
I don't know. Why am I supposed to know that? Carolyn's in charge of that.
Oh,
Literally.
snap.
No.
He just did that?
Jamar Ramos is hosting 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time this Thursday on Twitter about communicating in-house, out-house, whatever it is, with stakeholders. People who are holding stake.
In outhouses.
In outhouses. People are holding stake in outhouses.
There's the tagline.
1 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitter.
He just threw you under the bus right there, Carolyn. That's amazing.
She's in charge. I work for her.
It's not the first time.
All right. Well, that's it for this week in news on Edge. Thanks so much for listening and watching. Make sure you check out the second episode of the Christina Azarenko podcast dropping this week. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel whenever it gets updated or when we go to our next live show. From all of us over at Edge, stay safe, stay well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.